Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I'm very ready.
All right. Let's get started with number 15 then. And I'll go first. So at number 15, everybody, I have the Houston Rockets. I have Kevin Porter. This is kind of the lineup that you guys are going to see on my screen. I'm going to show you the lineup. Potentially, I know that there's guys like Tari Eason and Jabari Smith that are kind of down on here, but this is so far without them being introduced to the lineup just yet. I think that Jabari Smith is going to be in there over Deshaun Tate for sure. Um, they got Alfred Sengun, they got Kevin Porter Jr., like Brad was talking about last week as him at the point when we were talking about Christian Wood. And then Eric Gordon. I think Eric Gordon's an interesting one because I think he could potentially be a guy that's traded. And so for me, the reason why I have the Rockets here is because I think they're still a very young team. They have a lot of young pieces and they need to continue to grow and develop. And I feel like they need to take their lumps before they can come up and, kind of battle against the big boys, just like the Warriors did all those years back until they finally, reached that breaking point where they got old enough to where they could fight now against the big boys. And so if we look at their stats from last year, clearly overall team rankings, they were 29th in both offense and defensive rankings, but defensively they were number 6. And so, I think this team has a lot of things to work on. I think they allowed them one of the most points in the league. And so I think that's the reason why I had them at 15. It's just because I think that defensively they need a little bit of more work. But yeah, I got the Rockets at 15. Where do you guys rank or who's your 15?
I'll go.
Let me before we get too far, I just want to clarify. Are we going to do like how are we doing it necessarily? Are we all going to say like who we think is 15 in particular, or are we going to go by like specifically with the team and say where we have the Houston Rockets? What's your preference, Bernie?
Why don't we talk about our 15 and then at the end we'll put them in the tier list and we'll say, hey, yeah,
we can do that.
Yeah,
we can make deals and move teams around if we strongly disagree with each other, whatever. Now we have 3 people too, so we can vote a little bit if we need to.
True,
so,
yeah.
Right. Let's go for it. Brad, you're up.
All right, yeah, I'm with Bernie. I got the Rockets 15.
Ooh.
I think I like the addition of Jabari Smith because he's going to add defense and versatility. But he's not much of a shot creator. He has to be created for, and with Kevin Porter Jr. as their point guard, he's a great creator. It's just he's really, really up and down. So, that team offense isn't going to be really good. I love Steven Silas. I'm all about, uplifting black coaches. But schematic-wise, not a lot there. So they're just going to be helter-skelter. Sengun, it's really an experiment. A lot of people like Sengun. I personally don't think he can be a starting center in the league. Wow. I don't think so. I like Sengun. I like his game and his feel, but I don't see enough from him to think he could be like a starting center in the NBA. I don't. So yeah, I got the Rockets last. They don't even have any good vets really besides Eric Gordon, who's just a trade piece. So they're tanking for Wembanyama. Actually, they're tanking for Scoot to replace KPJ. But
probably.
Yeah, that might be the case. I want to see Usman Garuba get some minutes this year. Regardless, my number 15 is not the Houston Rockets, actually.
It's the Knicks.
No. Yeah, I put him in the West and I put him at the bottom of both conferences. No. I actually have Utah as my bottom team in the West.
Ooh.
This is a little speculative, I guess. I would argue that I'm kind of going based on, some common speculation that they're going to trade some more of these vets off this team just to get any pieces they can get. I think this is like the tank job of all tank job seasons. I really do. I think they're going to be terrible. I think if Colin Sexton is your best player, you might as well have Russell Westbrook as your best player. They're very similar players when it comes down to their efficiency, the shots they take. Getting other people involved on the court is not even as good for Sexton at this point in his career as it was for Westbrook, right? So I just don't see a lot to like. And realistically, here's my one difference with Houston. I actually don't even have Houston at 14. I have them at 13. Spoiler alert for me, just a little bit. I'm going purely based on just talent, just who's on the squad. If anybody takes a step forward, I just don't see any way for this Utah team not to be one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the league this season. And I think that's the plan. I don't know how you look at what they've done and say, yeah, these guys, they're going for it. So I think if Danny Ainge really truly wants to send it this year and go all in for Wembanyama, I think he's set himself up pretty nicely. Like, this team is terrible. It's so bad because there's no way Clarkson's on the squad. There's just no shot that he stays here. There's no way that Malik Beasley stays on this team. There's no way. You know, I could name 5 guys on this team. Mike Conley. What's his name? What's his name? Did he just get traded already?
He did to the Detroit
Did
Pistons.
Bogdanovich? Yeah, Bogdanovich got traded. I mean, they're awful. And this is their starting lineup as of right now, Utah. Mike Conley, which I think we all agree he will not be there in a few weeks' time. Colin Sexton, Malik Beasley, Lauri Markkanen, Kelly Olynyk. Kelly Olynyk was not a backup in the league like a couple seasons ago. Like, I like Kelly Olynyk, but if that's your starting center, I mean, I don't know if I like anybody on this team as much as I like Jalen Green, Jabari Smith. I mean, I could name like 3 or 4 guys on Houston I like more than anybody on Utah's roster. Yeah. So that's my rationale. It's a little bit speculative. I think Utah's terrible.
I mean, the only thing I'll say, and then Brad, you can go after. Actually, no, Brad, why don't you go first? You go first, Brad, if you have a counter.
Sure, yeah. Actually, I don't have a counter. I'm going to agree with Pete, actually. Looking at the roster, this roster is bad, bro. Like, it's really bad. Like,
and it only gets worse.
Yeah. Walker Kessler might be their starting center, or is it going to be Cody Zeller or Udoka as like, this is really bad. Saban Lee's going to get minutes.
The Mormon crew?
I forgot they have yeah, man. Oh my god. The trio of Mormons. Yeah.
The trio of
Cody Zeller, Lauri Markkanen, and Kelly Olynyk. Oh my god.
This team would have been European Mormon. This team would have been fire in the 40s.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. This team, oh my god. For real.
Yeah. But the one thing I will say that I think in defense of maybe not in defense, but what I will say is that I think that at the end of the day, the Houston Rockets team will be a lot better in a couple years. And I just think that, you know, when it comes to like the age, when you look at the age difference between the two teams, this league is a lot different than the NFL. It's a lot different than MLB. MLB, I'm not so sure about. I haven't really figured out their age difference, but for the NBA, you have to be kind of on the older side of it because they're a lot stronger, they're a lot faster, and I think for the Houston Rockets, they're still babies in my view, and you need to let guys like Jalen Green grow up a little bit more, let guys like KJ Martin grow up a little bit more, Tari Eason, who I think is going to be a very excellent piece for them, and I'm excited to see his growth and progression, but I think that's where, for me, the reason why I have Houston so low, it's not because I don't think that they could ever be good. It's just that at this current point, they're still in that early development phase of their team. And I think that age and experience matters in this league. And for these guys, they just need to gain that. And Brad was right about it. I mean, they don't really have a veteran presence because Eric Gordon is going to be traded. He's not staying there. And I think that's the issue that this team has at the current moment is that they have a bunch of young guys. I mean, they have Deshaun Nix, who was, I believe, drafted this year or last year. I can't remember what year he was drafted. Last year. Garuba, you know, a young guy. Bruno Fernando, probably one of the older bigs, or except for Marjanovic. But, you know, I don't think that Marjanovic has that, like, I would say, vocal leadership presence that I would say, like, even John Wall had on this team last year. And so I think for me, that's the reason why I have Houston at 15. But I could understand why you'd put Utah there. I mean, realistically, if those guys are gone, you know, guys like Jordan Clarkson, guys like Mike Conley, if those guys are off the roster, then I could 100% agree with you guys that Utah will probably be dead last.
There's going to come a day in probably like January, somewhere in that range, end of December, where you'll click onto a random Utah Jazz game and you'll hear 4 dudes on the court you've never heard their names before. People need to be prepared. This is that squad this year. They're going to be rotating dudes on 2-way contracts. They're going to be getting G League players. I mean, this team is going to be a disaster purposefully. And, my last thing for Houston too, well, I guess I'll save my Houston thoughts because I guess, no, we're all just talking about it. I think they're 14 or 15, whatever it is, 14 or 15. I think at the end of the day, Houston is not necessarily playing to be a nightmare. Like, they're not playing to be the worst team in the league at this point. They really, truly, it's about that time where Silas is going to need to see a little growth from his guys. He's going to need to see something. I mean, more so not from his guys. I think the team and the clubhouse themselves is going to have to see some growth from Silas as a coach and the team in return, right? Like, you can be terrible for a few years. We saw Brett Brown get the craziest leash of all time in Philly during the process, but like most teams don't want to have a coach with like a 0.2 win percent in their first 3 years. Like, they just don't want to see that, you know, even if it's purposeful and even if that's what the goal is for the first couple of years. You have to turn it around at some point. And I think, I mean, you have these guys who are top 15 picks. They have so many lottery picks on this team. It's crazy. So this is where I think it starts to come around. And, you know, my last point too, I think Jalen Green, I don't see a world in which anybody on Utah scores as many points per game as Jalen Green alone. Like, I think he's going to go up to like 23, 24 points per game this season. And maybe you think Colin Sexton can do that. Maybe you don't. I just think even if Sexton does get up to that range, those efficiency numbers are going to be just hideous seeing Sexton do it. I'm not a big Sexton person. I think that's kind of why they wanted him in that trade, Utah. Like, I think he's kind of like the young, maybe correctable Westbrook. I know I keep using that comparison, but I could see that being a legitimate reason they went to go get Colin Sexton. Like, his usage is so high and it doesn't really lead to winning. I think that's a galaxy brain type moment for Danny Ainge personally.
Okay. So then are you guys in agreement then that you both have Utah Jazz at 15?
I personally think they're the worst team in the league.
Okay. So
I would have them 15. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll put them there. Rockets. Where do you guys have the Rockets?
Let's do 14. You guys both had them at 15 originally. I have them at 13 on my list, but I think 14 is perfectly fair. I think them and my 14th team are like pretty interchangeable.
And who is your 14th team? Is it?
I have OKC as number 14.
Ooh. Okay.
Another semi-speculative, Bernie. I know you absolutely despise my OKC takes as of late. I just see another tank season, man. I just don't see what this team has done to improve. I know that if Chet is there, it's a different story. It's a completely different story. I think the intentions behind this season dramatically shifted for OKC as soon as he was out for the year. I think it really went, and they saw it as an opportunity, or they're going to see it as an opportunity to be the Thunder of the last 10 years or so all over again. And just get one more year in with this, you know, this upcoming strong draft class again. Like, let's say this team is as bad as they were last year and they get like the 5th pick. Like, they have to be pretty pleased with the idea of getting that in this draft. They're going to get, you know, one of the Twins or somebody like that in that range. So I just think they're terrible, man. And Bernie, I'm going to say the thing that you hate the most. I really think that Shea gets traded this year. I really do. I know there's people. Crazy. I know there's people who disagree. I get it. It's speculative. I know. I just think they're too terrible to keep a guy that good and that young, like, happy in that situation for as long as he's. But even then, if he's there, I just don't think he's enough to make this team that competitive. And I love Shea. I love Shea.
But where would they trade him to? I feel like nobody would even.
You already know what Pete's gonna say.
Hey, that's the dream. The dream is the Knicks. But regardless, I'm telling you right now, if there are teams giving 3 firsts for DeJounte Murray, if there's teams giving 3 firsts and 2 pick swaps for Donovan Mitchell, there's a team that will convince themselves to give that much for Shea. He has
those are all-stars, though. Shea, he hasn't been an all-star, though.
Shea has never been on a good team. He's been on terrible teams. If you look at what he can do on the court and his just effective range everywhere he can play on offense, defense, how big he is the guy that teams would want, I think. I think there's a lot of people that would look at him and say, oh, he's like a few years older Cade, basically. You know, whether people hate that take, I bet, but he's super good. He's just been on terrible teams.
Agreed. I agree. He's been on horrible teams. Yeah.
The thing that I'll say about this is that, I think it's unfortunate that Chet Holmgren got hurt this year, but even with Chet out of this lineup, I don't think that they're going to be as bad as you think they're going to be. I still think that Jalen Williams will do an amazing job there, kind of either subbing in for a guy like Lou Dort, maybe even playing that 2 guard for a little bit. But you have guys like Shai Gilgeous, you have Josh Giddey, you have Trey Mann in that lineup. You have, like I said, Lou Dort. You have Derek Favors, who's a veteran in this league, done a great job. I think that this team is a lot better than you guys think. I don't think that
they're fine at 13 for me. I'm happy with that. I actually, now that we're talking about it, I think they're better than Houston.
I think I have them at 12 is where I had them at. And the reason why is because I think this team is a lot better than a lot of people give credit for it, and they don't really have to do that bad of a tank job because they have so many picks coming up. So this isn't a situation where they need to be as terrible as they need to be, or they should be. But offensively, I think is their biggest struggle because other than Shai Gilgeous averaging his 25, the one thing that's missing for this team is extra scoring, and so. Who's going to be that extra scorer for them? Josh Giddey is not really that guy to score, as many points as he does. He's more of like a, 15, I would say, points per game type of player. Not going to go crazy on that. Lou Dort, maybe just because he's getting the volume of 3-point shots. Jalen Williams will have to be that guy that steps up offensively this year. And so, I'm excited to see him do that, and I think that you're ranking them a little too low for my liking. I think I got OKC at 12 in my list.
Really? Okay, I got them at 13 because I think what Pete said about them seeing an opportunity with Chet is probably spot on. Just imagine, picture this: Victor and Chet on the same team.
The Twins,
they have to at least try. Yeah, they have to at least try. With all those picks, I could see that. I would say Trey Mann also would probably help pick up the scoring.
Yeah.
He's a really, really good off the bench scorer. But they're going to purposely, some of these people on the roster, Lindy Walters, he's going to play and not good. Usman Dang is probably one of the worst players in the league, dog. I can't even lie to you. I like him. He's young.
Yeah.
But no. And he's going to get minutes too. So
you're hitting on exactly my ultimate point with this team right now, Brad. This team, Sam Presti being the general manager of this squad, has shown nothing but being the kings of speculative basketball over the last 5 to 10 years, right? That is literally what they build their core ideals around. That's why they took Usman Dang. They traded 3 first-round picks for Usman Dang. If you watched any tape on Usman Dang, he is one of the least ready players to play this season of basketball there is. He's one of the least ready. I like Usman Dang. I actually wanted the Knicks to hold on to him and let him play in the G League for a while. He's so not ready to play NBA basketball. But that being said, it's all about body type. It's all about potential skill set. And if they're willing to go that speculative on guys like Chet, Poku, Usman Dang, they are 100% salivating, foaming at the mouth over Wembanyama. They are 100%. And I think when it comes down to it, if the potential is we have all these picks, they've tried to trade for the first pick before. They tried to get Cade a couple years ago. And they tried to give as many things as they could to Detroit to get it. I just think there is a very strong likelihood that they see that the writing is on the wall. It's the same exact scenario they've been in. Mm-hmm. And the only thing holding them back from being in that top 3 again is Shai. He is literally the only thing that will prevent them from being that bad. And I think the last couple of years, we've seen him literally get benched for injuries that he could have played through. We know that happened. I mean, it's undeniably true. And he was winning and shooting game-winning shots for them, and it just didn't. That's not what they want. That's not what they're building around. So I think when it comes down to it, they have their point guard of the future in Josh Giddey. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I know there's people who think he's a 2. He's a 1, man. He's a point guard. I mean, he really is.
Is he hurt right now too? Again?
Yeah.
He's hurt. He's out until the beginning of the season.
Training camp at least.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I mean, I know it's speculative. I just think We have
Hmm.
seen this team make the same choices over and over, but in slightly different ways. They're looking
Yeah.
for these huge, weird players that no one else has, and I think, like Brad said, the idea of Chet Wembenyama on one team with Josh Giddey, a 6'7", 6'8" Steve Nash playing the point guard. I mean,
Well, okay.
they're
Well,
that's
trade
all they're
Giddey,
thinking
please.
about. That's all they're thinking about.
All right. Let's and then I think my 14th team, and maybe we can go from all the way to 12. I think one of the teams I have in here was the San Antonio Spurs. I think they're kind of one of those teams that needs to be a little bit down there, just because I think when I look at this roster, they have some decent pieces, but the fact that they have Romeo Langford in their rotation, that's gotta be a
That's painful.
that's gotta be an alert. That's gotta be like a red alert emoji. Just like what are we looking at here? You have Jakob Poeltl, solid, not really good, but solid. Keldon Johnson, they're kind of all-star of the team, not an all-star, but an all-star of the team. Kind of taking over the ropes. But then you have Trey Jones, who I like, but I don't know if he's really. I mean, do you guys think that he's a starting point guard in this league, or do you think that he's someone that needs to come off the bench as like a six-man or just a rotation guard?
He's definitely an off the bench player, but his defense will make them a better team this year.
Yeah.
He's a great defender.
I mean, they got Doug McDermott on this team. They got Zach Collins, who can't stay healthy.
Dougie McBuckets? Are you?
They got
nuts
they got
Doug?
Zach Collins, who can't really stay healthy.
Yeah, never.
They got their guy Sochan. Jeremy Sohan. I like him. I think that he's a great player. It's just I don't know if that was the right fit for the Spurs in terms of what they needed.
Good, Bernie.
He'll be good.
They're gonna want to develop him.
But yeah, and then you have Keita Bates-Diop, who I like. But other than that, to me, I think that this team is a lot worse than I would say the Jazz team even.
I just want to quickly shout out Josh Primo because he is a god in 2K23 for no reason. Like he is really good in 2K23. They see the vision or something.
Still one of the youngest players in the league. I mean, he's been in the league for a full year, and he's still one of the youngest guys in the league. My rationale with the Spurs is quick. All right, I have them at 12 personally, above those three teams we've already talked about. It's maybe there's people who hate this take nowadays. It's been a few years since they've been competitive. I kind of look at the Spurs like I look at the Patriots, man. I mean, they get I give them extra wins because of the coaching staff. I always do. And generally speaking, it plays out that way. Like they're a little bit better than the worst teams just because of the difference in coaching quality. And this team is terrible. Like their roster is god awful. And if you had to like take OKC's roster versus this one or even Houston's, there's no you'd have to be a lunatic to take this team over those. But I just don't see a universe in which like San Antonio truly bottoms out with Popovich as their coach. And I think people underrate how good Keldon Johnson is. I think without DeJounte Murray, he's going to probably move up into the mid-20 range points per game. He's really solid. Jeremy Sohan is going to actually surprise people too. I don't think they're good. I think this team is terrible. If you had to rank like the least promising futures of all these teams, I think they're probably one of the most. But as long as they have Popovich, I think they're better than these consistent tanking teams until I see differently.
Okay. Brad, what you got for us with the Spurs?
I agree. I got the Spurs at number 12. I think that Devin Vassell is he's on the trajectory to be one of the better two-way players in the league. He can shoot it. He's got crazy long wingspan. They're just developing their young players right now. Josh Primo. I like Malachi Branham too, actually. He was really good at Florida State. I think that's a sneaky pickup. But yeah,
I like Blake Wesley too. Another good pickup.
Yeah, Blake Wesley's a good pickup. Super scorer.
Like Romeo Langford.
That one.
Romeo Langford, I did not like that at all. At all.
That one's pretty rough.
Yeah. But yeah, they're gonna imagine them getting Wembanyama. With that development,
that's like a Tim Duncan situation all over again. I mean, the difference is they don't have the
Admiral.
They don't have they don't have like a quality star who can mentor him, but I don't think it matters if you have Popovich and then you have like
Tim is on the coaching staff though, right?
Yeah.
He kind of goes back and forth. I think he was one season and then he wasn't last season. I don't think he was on their
Yeah,
bench last year.
I didn't see him. Yeah, but he's in
I
there.
think he took a
He's in
year
their front
away.
office or something.
Yeah,
Like,
he's kind of like he's like, what's his name? Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting one of the best players of all time? The guy that the Mavericks player, Nowitzki. Oh my
Manu
God,
Ginobili.
Dirk. Oh
Dirk.
yeah, yeah.
No, Dirk. He's kind of like the Dirk. He's like the Dirk of this just the San Antonio locker room. He's like there. And I think once I don't know, Bernie. I mean, they might honestly be the worst team because you do have to think like if they're looking at Wembanyama, which every team in the league is, especially these bad teams, maybe this is like the Tim Duncan. We're just going to be absolutely god awful for this guy, and he can change everything. So you might be right. I've never seen Popovich truly go for it in like the full tankiest of tank ways. So we'll see, man. We'll see. I'm excited. Josh Primo. I'm legitimately excited to see Josh Primo this season, just because I think he's one of the more fascinating, like positional players in the league as far as why they drafted him. They took a huge reach when they drafted him last season. And he's so young. He's just such a weird potential type player. So I'm excited and interested to see how he gets more opportunity at San Antonio. What the vision was when they took him is interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So who are we putting at 14? Who are we putting at 13 then? Because I got Jazz, I got Rockets. Who's going next? Are we going Spurs? Or are we going OKC?
Oh man, that's tough. Honestly, Bernie, I'm gonna side with you just because I don't side with you enough, and because I'm torn. Let's do San Antonio.
Okay.
Just because I think I have to keep the same energy. I think their top end talent is just, even with Chet out, it's not as good as OKC. They don't have anybody that is even on the stratosphere of Shea or even Josh Giddey, in my opinion. So based on that logic, I'll put San Antonio at 13. Stick with you.
And then OKC at 12. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of it for there.